Hello and welcome to the second inaugural recording of the first episode of Ranking 76. I am your host, Eric,
Hey, I'm Matt.
and we are attempting to rank the most notorious and infamous Western figures in American history. Uh,
Attempt two.
attempt two.
It didn't go that bad. I will say it didn't go that bad.
I was
But
very nervous. It turns out recording in front of a microphone can be very nervous, even though you're in a room by yourself. So I'll get over
no
myself.
one's around.
Anyway, we're talking about Billy the Kid today because, of course, we're talking about Billy. He's one of the biggest figures in Western history. Matt, what do you know? What do you know about Billy the Kid? Everything.
I know a little bit because we talked about him a little bit, but it's still not a lot, as the people listening will soon find out a little bit
Great,
why.
great. Well, what time is
Should we
it?
just jump right into it?
What time is it there?
It is 10:41 a.m.
Oh, well, coffee's great, but we're starting a Western podcast, and it does not officially start until you hear this sound. So cheers. Now we've officially started. This is the earliest I've had a beer probably since college. We'll see if I actually finish it.
So, guys, Billy the Kid here.
I'm not, I'm not a freshman. Take your iced coffee.
Hey, I love me some coffee.
It is good. Okay. Anyway, enough chit chat.
Yeah, I'm
Starting off
ready. I'm ready to learn about Billy the Kid. So whenever you're
before
ready, good sir.
before we get started here, do you have a notepad?
I do.
There is a lot of nicknames, and I don't know if they're cool or not. So I need you to like once you hear a nickname, you need to tell me if it's good or not because I either think they're the coolest thing depending on when I read it or they're the lamest name I've ever heard of. So I need a second opinion. Anyway, we're going to start off with a quote from Bob Bowes Bell. If anyone is familiar with Western history, you likely know Bob Bowes Bell. His quote about Billy is very apt, and from birth to death, almost every facet of his life is completely undocumented. And boy, is that true. Um, Billy is born Henry McCarty, and that's about all we can confirm. He existed as a real person. He was possibly born in New York. He possibly was born in Ireland, but he was definitely born to a Catherine, maybe in 1859. His father, whose name might be Michael, dies before Henry has memories, so he doesn't matter. Henry also has a brother who may be older or younger than him, depending on what census you want to look at. His mother, however, Catherine, is an Irish immigrant, as I just said, likely moved because of the Irish potato famine. She might have come over to New York married with Michael or single. Uh, but what is known is that when Henry was very young, Catherine moves them west, first moving to Indianapolis, where she meets a man named William Antrim. The couple live out of wedlock for a time and move farther west, starting in Wichita. Sometime during this, so take a pick. Catherine catches tuberculosis. Not entirely sure when she contracts it, but it may have been in New York. It also may explain why the family moves from New York to drier and drier climate. But after about 18 months of moving around, the family move to Silver City, New Mexico, where William and Catherine are married, Henry with his brother actually witnessing. Billy's childhood to this point is fairly ordinary. He was an average student, said to have had a sharp wit with what they called dancing eyes, eyes that just never stopped moving. Which, what's that movie with John Cusack and the crazy guy who keeps going back and forth in his head? He like twitches his eye. It's like they're in a
Uh,
fever dream.
what?
Anyway,
Gross Point Blank, maybe? Say
not that
anything?
one. We'll figure it
Oh,
out.
High Fidelity?
That might be it. They're in a like a hotel, and it's like a limit, and it ends up being just this fat dude with like rapidly moving eyes. Picture him for the three of you who are understanding what I'm saying. Anyway, his eyes would never stop moving. He seemed like a fairly average child. He played pranks on teachers. He put snakes on their desk. He would chase girls away with mice. Billy is had a very small stature, and because of that, he was bullied. He also apparently had a sweet tooth that ended up causing him to have bad teeth. Historian Jeffrey Weddell would describe him as very anxious to please, willing to take extraordinary risk, and Henry would do anything to prove his worth. Other kids in the school soon realized he had genuine courage. One example is when a friend named Whitehill would recall years later that one time him and Billy got into an argument. Billy shoved him into a river, and Billy seemed all content to just let his friend drown in the river, and he likely would have if he wasn't saved by a nearby adult. Later that day, when Whitehill and Henry are continuing their argument for some time, another bully comes up and starts picking on Whitehill, where Billy then turns his attention on the bully. It isn't written down what Billy said, but he is able to save his friend from being picked up, from being beat up.
Hey, no one can kill my best friend unless it's me,
That's
okay?
right, as he probably went back to giving him a noogie. When Billy wasn't busy drowning his friends in a river, he and his mother would go to dances. This seemed to be one of the two things he really enjoyed in his life: dancing and the senoritas. Weddell again described him as being unfailingly courteous, especially to the ladies. Like his mother, he was a spirited singer and dancer. He had an alert mind and could come up with a snappy proverb on every occasion. Because he was seen to be genuine, the Latino population really embraced him at an early age. This would come in very helpful later in his life. Billy, in turn, loved the Latino women. Paulita Maxwell, who would very well be the love of his life, said of Billy years later, Billy, said, quote, Billy the Kid, may I tell you, fascinated many women. Like a sailor, he had a sweetheart in every port to call, and in every pecos, some little senorita was proud to be his lover.
True gentleman.
True gentleman. So, it's not all ordinary for Billy, though. He does plan his first robbery. It's a fairly small scale operation, admittedly, but he basically wanted to steal some costume jewelry from a candy stand. And because I'm a 33-year-old man, I had to look up what costume jewelry is. It's like the fake
It's the
jewelry that
yeah,
you put.
the like they use in like plays and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, I had to
Or
look it
like
up.
you go to the store and get like, mommy, I want the necklace. Oh, okay, yeah, here's some fake jewels.
Yes, there's
I have at it.
first of many fake jewels, young lady, you'll get in your life. Uh, a very disappointed Catherine, his mother, warned her son with maybe a little bit of foreshadowing that he would be hung before he was 21 years old, which seems pretty heavy for a teen, doesn't it? Like, you
His mom
stole.
said that to
His
him.
mom supposedly said that to him.
Listen, son, you're going to be killed.
You just stole a piece of plastic jewelry. You will be murdered one day. They're coming for you. Henry's stepfather, William, starts spending less and less time with his family and his stepchildren, possibly prospecting for gold. While he is away, Catherine unfortunately succumbs to tuberculosis and dies in May of 1874. William
Dang,
is
because
not.
she lived quite a bit. She lived quite a bit with that.
She gives it a go, which I don't know how. I need to probably look up how long tuberculosis takes to set in, but even like Doc Holliday lasted a while. So I don't know. Maybe the climate. I don't know how long tuberculosis takes to set in. It probably also depends on your case, but yeah, I don't know. She gave it a while, especially like that had to be a miserable life knowing that you're going to die of this horrible disease. So anyway,
Well, just using the old think tank, the old noggin here,
we heard you
aka
typing.
Google.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we heard you typing. Don't.
it can take about 2 to 5 years.
Oh, how terrible. Thank God we have that cured. So anyway, William is not present even for the funeral. William is still pretty young himself, maybe not equipped to raise two young boys who he honestly hasn't spent that much time with. Maybe dreaming of all the gold he is about to pick up, effectively abandons both boys, making them orphans. For the next year or so, Henry and I'm assuming his brother is there, but they don't really mention his brother, but he existed, his older and younger brother. They're taken into a boarding house in exchange for some work. They live there for approximately a year, and Henry starts to act out a bit. He is caught stealing several pounds of butter.
Hey, he's moving up in the world, It started with fake jewelry, now he's on to, butter.
Now, butter. Do you think he got some jewelry like stuck on his finger and he needed the
Yeah, he
butter
couldn't get his ring, couldn't get the
to
diamond ring
pry
off
it
or the
off?
fake diamond. Come
Like
on.
just very bony fingers. That would be ironic. We'll see why him not being able to get off a fake ring will be ironic in a little bit here. He is released on promise of good behavior. He seems to just be a fairly mischievous teen. Obviously, he just lost his mother. He's halfway around a continent. He doesn't know anyone. His father abandoned him. His biological father is dead. Like, he's drifting to a point. So it is showing that he's starting to hang out with the wrong crowd. That wrong crowd has a name, and that name is George Schaefer. George, though, had a love for a very distinctive piece of Mexican headwear and loved it so much that he probably gave himself a nickname of Sombrero Jack. That's the first nickname. I'm going to need a judgment here. Scale of 1 to 10.
Sombrero Jack. Ugh. I'm gonna say maybe a 3. I mean, I love a good sombrero, but why are you Sombrero Jack? Or were you known to walk around with sombreros or what?
That's exactly it. I think he just liked it. He looked in a mirror all day. Probably like, yes, constant tongue clicking in the mirror. God, I'm sexy.
So they became friends.
They did. I think Sombrero was more of a mentor to Billy. I also think we'll see. Sombrero, I think, is going to be using Billy more than anything. According to the local sheriff in Silver City, Sombrero Jack was known for two things: strong drink and property theft. He would say every Saturday night, George uh, would get drunk, and he would go steal. He thought a lot of Billy, and Billy used to follow him around. The fellow George liked to steal, and he had a mania to steal, and he was always stealing. What seemed to be a typical Saturday night for him, Jack breaks into a Chinese laundry, and he makes off with a pair of revolvers, some blankets, clothing. Total loot coming out to around $200, which is not insignificant, but not the biggest haul that we're going to see. Jack hides his booty in a mill outside of town and asks Henry to possibly keep the stash inside of town just for easier access, and promises that Henry can have some of the new clothes. Henry, likely thinking it'd be cool to have some new clothes on his back, agrees to do so. A couple days later, after cleaning his room, the operator of the boarding house discovers some of the missing clothes and stashed in a trunk in Henry's room. She hurries off to the sheriff, telling him that Henry had actually been seen wearing some of the stolen clothing and hiding more of it in her boarding house. The sheriff quickly collects Henry and places him in a jail cell. The sheriff, understanding this teenager might be at a crossroads in his life, uh, was planning on really releasing Henry with a slap on the wrist. Part of the problem is because New Mexico, even to this day, isn't well populated. Back in then, you had basically a roving judge, and it might take up to 3 months for the judge to enter your town. That's when everybody got their sentencing, whatever. Well, Billy would have to sit in the cell until the judge showed up effectively. And when you're an early teen, 3 months, Jesus Christ, does that seem like an awfully long time? That
Whoa,
seems
imagine doing like something so petty and then all of a sudden, well, I mean, I could let you go, but we got to wait for the judge and he just left, so Well, see you in about 3 months.
Yep. Good luck. Yeah, I don't know. I'm impatient as it is. If an app doesn't work properly, I get irritated, but that's the millennial in me. Henry has a few other ideas other than waiting in this jail cell. Maybe showing some charisma, maybe showing some of his cleverness. He complains to the sheriff one day that the jailer was treating him roughly and kept him in solitary confinement in his cell without any exercise all day. The sheriff then allows Henry to remain in the corridor outside the cell each morning. What a guy. You don't get to stay in your cell. You can stay in the hallway outside your cell. Is that better? Somehow that's better. Literally, the first day Henry is allowed to stay in the corridor, he is taken out of his cell. He's placed in the corridor for 30 minutes. The jailer locks the door, leaves, comes back, unlocks the door to hope to see Henry, and there's no one in the jail. The jailer looks around, panicked. He runs outside the jail cell, or the jail, and finds a man who I actually picture, like the Muppets, like the two guys that heckle.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
uh, the-
from in the
I'm
opera.
I'm picturing both of them like laughing, like, "Oh, who are you looking for?" Whatever. That's a terrible impersonation. But anyway, he sees a man on the ridge, and the man says, "Who are you looking for?" The jailer responds, "Act a prisoner." And the two old men in the balcony say, "It came out of the chimney." A very puzzled jailer uh, runs back into the jail. He looks up, goes over to the chimney, and sure enough, he can see imprints of Henry's hands and elbows as he climbed out of the chimney. He effectively pulled a reverse Santa
The
and
old,
escaped jail.
gotta love the old reverse Santa.
Which sounds dirty. Now that I've said that, there's just,
Ooh, you did that reverse Santa, didn't ya?
oh God. Ugh. This just got taken.
Ho ho ho!
Santa's real, everyone. If you have any children in there, don't explain that joke to them. Uh, the chimney hole. Oh God, that is actually on my nose. The chimney itself did not appear as large as his arm, as the jailer's arm. Henry just squeezed his body up and was able to escape. This is prison break
When
number
you're
one.
when you're looking at getting 3 months in the old slammer, I'd probably try some stuff too.
The next morning, a story of Henry's escape appears in the Silver City Herald. I believe this is where Henry McCarty as his real name exists. There's a lot of different origin stories on Billy, especially after he dies. He's eventually goes by Billy Bonnie, and there is a theory that he is actually a descendant of the Irish pirate Anne Bonny, Calico Jack fame. Uh, Not a whole lot of evidence, but it sounds cool. Chances are he just picked the name because he needed an alias later on. But
Is this the only time we see Henry as his name in the book in the history books?
no, so if you look at I got it, if I'm remembering it right, when he witnessed his mother getting married to Antrim, he and his brother witnessed. They actually signed the document, or they're listed on there, and I think they put Henry in there. But I probably need to really confirm that. But
So back in the old Western days, you could just have a little kid be your witness. Just
well, I mean, you're going to get married anyway. It's just I think it was they're part of this family. Like, let's have them sign it because ooh, isn't it cute? They're fine. They're signing it, kind of.
we're a family.
We're a family, kind of. Mommy's dying. Oh, please be my new daddy. You're not going to be my new daddy.
So it was in the papers that Henry escaped.
Henry escaped. Yes. Uh, Quote, Henry McCarty, who was arrested on Thursday and committed to jail to await action of the grand jury upon charges of stealing clothes from Charlie's son and Sam Chung, escaped from prison yesterday through the chimney. It is believed that Henry was simply a tool of Sunborough Jack, who done who had done the stealing whilst Henry had done the hiding. Jack was skinned out, and then it just stops. So this is one of the other period of Henry's life where there's a big gap that's not really confirmed of what he's doing. There is a rumor that he did visit his stepfather William one final time and told him that he had just been caught stealing clothes. He just escaped jail, and then William is to have basically disowned him, that he wanted nothing to do with Billy because he had just broken out of jail. In my opinion, it seems like that was just a convenient excuse for William to completely wash his hands of Billy because he didn't want him to begin with. So having someone go down the
Now he's got an excuse to
yes,
actually get rid of him.
right, and now he can just do whatever. Now he can feel better about, but that again, I don't know that. That's
Because
just how I took it.
Billy was still what, a teenager at this point?
Yes,
So he was going to look for some advice, and his stepfather was just like, "Yeah, stop showing up around here, kid. Get out of here."
there is definitely a trend in his life of he just. I don't want to say he needs like a strong male influence, but like damn it does he seem to want like a father figure or like just someone to call a family. It just seems like that's what he's trying to chase. But and you'll see what we're talking about in a bit.
So William gave him the boot. So then what?
2 years pass.
Oh, so he just lays low for 2 years, or just nothing recorded and
Nothing's recorded, but like obviously after he dies, he there's a few more like stories of what he
stories
can
that
do,
pop
but it's
up?
all after he dies. It goes like there is a crime 3 states over. Well, it was Billy the Kid because we
Right.
don't know what he was doing, type thing. Um,
Let's just go ahead and attach his name to any
right.
crime for times that he wasn't. Okay.
When he
Gotcha.
does pop up again, he ends up fleeing to Arizona, and he meets up with two other local criminals who were recently discharged from the cavalry near Camp Grant. The trio soon are stealing horses. They would wait for their potential victims to enter saloons, and then they would slip their hands into the saddlebags or just steal the horse completely. Henry, for the third time that we know of, is caught stealing with his hand in a saddlebag one day. In an attempt to flee, Henry throws salt in the guard's face. Don't know where he gets the salt. Don't know if he had it in his pocket.
I was just gonna
Um,
say, keeps it in his pocket. Huzzah!
Next to the fake jewelry and the butter. Then he has his salt. It's turning into like, what if it's like a little like like the Batman utility belt?
I'm just trying to make some cookies.
Salt and cookies.
Yeah,
Why
a
not?
little pinch. You always do a little pinch.
Sure, sure we do. So Henry threw salt in the guard's face, and uh, the guard just kind of, I don't know, probably thought it was annoying. Billy is soon caught, um, and he is put into shackles. He is put into local jail. He is briefly put into jail, but because Billy is approximately 90 pounds, and they didn't quite look up how skinny Billy was versus how wide the bars are, it is thought that he literally just slipped through the bars of the jail and escaped.
I'm just picturing one of those like movies where the person's like they're arguing how to get out, and then they just notice that they can just the doors open. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
my bad.
oh no.
Almost like it's too hard to believe.
But it's after you have like a really good plan to escape, and then like you're almost disappointed that the door, like, oh, they just had to open the door. Can we
I'm
still
gonna
do the
get the
plan?
guard over here. You're gonna hit him over the head with this bar that we
With
found. Well,
salt.
I'm gonna steal his keys. Yeah.
Billy, I have salt. Billy, enough with the salt. For God's sake, that didn't work the first time. Put the salt down.
So he literally just it's thought that he literally just squeezed through the bars and left.
Yes. Just,
Oh
yeah,
my
squeezed out.
gosh.
He was also able to slip the handcuffs off because, again, small frame. It's not like handcuffs where it's the latch that we have today. It's basically a big horseshoe shape with a straight bar, and then you
Oh
tighten
yeah.
it. So that's a little bit, I don't want to say more acceptable for him, but um, for him to leave, to be able to leave or to break free. But that's what is believed that happened. So Billy, who apparently is not learning lessons, he continues stealing horses, he continues going to dances, and he starts gambling. In the gambling halls, Henry crosses paths with the local blacksmith, another survivor of the Irish famine. This man name is Frank Cahill. Frank gains an incredibly unfortunate nickname, Windy, because he is prone to telling tall stories, which at that time was called Windies. Matt, where does that rank on the nickname cool factor?
Ooh, well, it
Some
sounds like he passes gas a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and say probably like a good 3 out of 10 for me.
he's up there with Sombrero Jack. Same score.
Little bit better than, or a little bit worse.
I was
I'm
about to say
sorry,
there's
than
no way that's better.
Sombrero Jack.
I mean, I don't know which ones are cool. I know that one's bad. That's just
And from experience, I know if you tell a lot of tall tales, people are gonna, just never believe anything you say.
we all know that guy. There is a short description of Billy, who actually adopts the name Kid Antrim. That's another nickname to rank.
Kid Antrim.
Yes,
Oh, that's his stepdad's name though.
correct.
Was he just like, I'm gonna get him back by being associated with him?
I think so. That's how I took it. As well, if you don't want anything to do to me, if I'm going to get caught in jail and throw salt in people's eyes,
Or it could be in him of being like, I really want a family.
yeah, please accept me. I need attention. This is a cry for help.
He'll see this in the papers and know I still love him.
So Henry joins a poker game with Cahill, with Wendy Cahill. Um, Backstory: Cahill was the blacksmith. It's rumored that the shackles Billy broke from were actually made from Cahill, which might actually explain some of the tension or some of the actions Wendy had towards Billy. Either way, it just seems like Cahill was kind of an asshole, as of like Biff from Back to the Future type bully. I think he just enjoyed picking on him because he could. So they sit down at a poker game, and through drinks and just through the course of the night, Cahill has the audacity to call Billy, are you ready for this? A pimp.
You pimp.
Mother effer. Oh, before we get into that, so before he's calling him pimp, apparently Billy came into town, this is a direct quote, came into town dressed like a country Jake with his quote, store pants on and shoes instead of boots.
How dare you buy pants from a store?
How dare you wear shoes? He wore a 6-gun stuffed in his trousers, which again sounds dirty. We're going back to Reverse Santa. And he dared enter that saloon dressed like that. So again, they're talking. He's also known to be wearing scars, brightly colored scars at this point. Pretty easy fodder for any bully who sees a small child wearing a brightly colored scarf. During the course of the night, the two start talking trash. Cahill calls him a pimp. Billy responds by calling him a son of a bitch. And just to show you how easy it is for two men to start fighting in the 1870s America, Cahill tackles Billy and easily overpowers him, takes him to the ground, starts beating on him. A crowd gather around the two men who were fighting. Billy is crying out, "You are hurting me, let me up." Cahill responded with, "I want to hurt you. That's why I have you down. Dot 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 McFly."
Who you calling chicken?
Billy struggles to find any advantage. He is able to free one arm enough and is able to actually get a hold of his gun during the struggle. Maybe it was a bit of a panic. Billy pulls the trigger and shoots Cahill in the belly. And for a man who's nicknamed Windy, I would like to imagine all of. So as the wind is passing through Windy, Billy panics. He just shot a guy. He steals a horse and flees, not really knowing how the law would react. He has a plausible, the way laws are, you probably can get away with self defense, but Cahill didn't have a gun, so you don't really know. Billy's also threw salt in a man's eyes and stole horses, so maybe they just want to get rid of him. So there is a legitimate worry for Billy.
He's already been in trouble with the law multiple times at this point. It's not looking good for him.
Yep. So he flees. Cahill actually lives for a couple of days and writes in his final statement, I, Frank Cahill, being convinced that I am about to die, do make the following my final statement. My name is Frank P. Cahill. I was born in the country of Galway, Ireland yesterday. Galway, Ireland. Yesterday, August 17th, 1877, I was I had trouble with Henry Antrim, otherwise known as Kid, during which he shot me, and I had called him a pimp, and he had called me a son of a. We then took a hold of each other. I did not hit him, I think. I saw him go for his pistol and tried to get a hold of it, but could not, and he shot me in the belly. I have a sister named Margaret, blah, 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 blah. I'm dying. Cahill, eventually all of the wind leaves his stomach, and he dies soon after.
So he was dying and he had time to write out like a very, very long letter of exactly what happened.
It's only a couple of lines. It's 5 or 6 lines on there, and it could have also been dictated. Like he could have been talking. I don't know if he physically
I'm
wrote it.
assuming he would have had to have been talking to someone who was writing it down if he was shot in the stomach.
Mm-hmm. Being gut shot sounds like it would be the absolute worst way. Not the absolute worst way to die, but pretty brutal.
Well, I mean,
Um,
especially back then. I mean, it's not
right?
like there's just an operating room
No,
that they could go and patch you up.
just yeah, just liquor is about all you can do. You dull the pain, or just hope you die. But yeah, being gut shot would be real nasty.
So
Um,
Wendy has passed away. Yeah,
he's got
dude.
puns. He's got puns. A few days after Cahill dies, a traveler leading a horse minus the saddle and bridle show up in town. Apparently, Henry had found the rider riding into town, and asked him to return the horse to his owner. Isn't that sweet? He returned the horse he stole as he was fleeing. Is that story made up? Probably, but doesn't it sound nice?
I
What a guy.
mean, he didn't want to. The guy didn't want him to go down for stealing his horse too. So
It's
he
true.
just randomly rode back into town.
What a guy. So Billy, the other long term, another part in his life where you don't know what happens. This is another one. What is known either a couple months later or a couple years later, Billy ends up returning to New Mexico and specifically to Lincoln County. Lincoln County, I don't it's not known how much Billy knows about what was going on in Lincoln County, New Mexico. If he probably wasn't all aware of who ran the territory, but he does change his name finally to William Bonney. So we can now start calling him Billy.
Okay, I was wondering where we caught Billy from Henry. So
Yeah,
now it's coming together. It's coming together.
New Mexico Billy is the Mexico Billy is walking into is a little different. Florence Murphy and James Dolan are two Irish ranchers who have really taken over the county. Little money is spent or traded without them having direct knowledge of it or having some type of hand in it. Judges, sheriffs, and railroads, and anyone in the county effectively reports to Murphy and Jimmy Dolan. This faction is collectively known as the House.
Now that's a pretty good nickname. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm gonna say that's the cool like. I'm part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's an 8 out of 10 for
I feel
me.
like he then snaps his fingers and points at the camera. The House. Moving into Lincoln County was a well off Englishman named John Tunstall. Tunstall has a lot of money and is willing to use it. He buys enough ranch land to catch the eye of the House. Maybe because rich men do not like competition, or it is their bound duty to fight for the English and the Irish to fight, the two stack factions start building up cowboys. Tunstall makes it known that any ranch hands that are being hired need to be very handy with a rifle. A fight is coming. Billy, adjusting to life after killing his first man, starts a friendship with some of the members of the house, and once again steals horses. And once again is caught stealing horses. For the love of God, Billy, stop stealing.
He's
You
like the
suck at
world's
it.
worst criminal. I
You're
swear.
real
Everything he
bad.
steals, he just gets caught.
It's real bad. One of these horses belonged to John Tunstall. Billy is taken to the Lincoln County Jail, which turns out to be more dungeon and, if we're being really honest, a glorified hole in the ground. Billy receives a visitor, and it's John Tunstall.
The guy he just
Billy
stole
is
from.
the guy he just stole from. Billy is soon released with all charges dropped. And not long after that, Tunstall is now paying Billy. It's not known if Tunstall paid off or dropped the charges. It's not really known why. He may have just taken a liking to Billy, or he may have had a Machiavellian ends justify the means. Let's take from the house and help ours. He's very handy with a gun. He seems to be a good ally. Impressionable kid.
I mean, he probably went up to him and went, "You work for me now, kid. You work for me."
He's English, but I do like the enthusiasm. Can you do an English accent? And
You work
because
for
I
me
want.
now, buddy. I don't know what's
Oh dear. Oh dear. I think we just lost any UK listener. I think
Sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's too late. It's too late. Anyway, regardless of how Tunstall felt, Billy really takes a liking to Tunstall. Later saying that Tunstall was the only man who treated me like I was decent and white, which makes you cringe a little bit. If you could have just left off the white part, like that
Yeah.
would have been, it was fine. Life is looking pretty good for Billy. Seems like he might have a real prospect at a life. He might have a legitimate father figure. Keep in mind, his mother, dead. Biological father, dead. Uh, Stepfather, dead. Sombrero Jack, still looking in a mirror.
Brother
Wendy,
may or may not be older.
the brother he's there somewhere. I don't know if they keep in contact. So yeah,
Father figure achieved.
life is looking pretty good for Billy. It seems like he has real prospects of a life for the first time since his mother died. Possibly a life that didn't require illegal actions, and let's hope never stealing a horse again. But then the very dramatic court battles started by the house start to pop up. Something Billy probably didn't mind much attention to, but because the house effectively owned the county, it starts to drain Tunstall's money. He is forced to mortgage his store, his land, and all of his livestock. He even transfers money to an ally in Santa Fe in order to keep the local sheriff from repossessing everything. Knowing this, a judge orders the seizure of all of Tunstall's property and hands the responsibility to collect to Sheriff William Brady. Brady, who not surprisingly is also allied with the House, is more than happy to do so. After breakfast on February 18th, Tunstall, Billy, and a few others leave the ranch bound for Santa Fe to hand over some of the repossessed cattle. A posse deputized by Brady rode into Tunstall's ranch, realized the posse had already left. Brady and his posse were holding documents to seize all of the livestock ordered by the court. When they realized Tunstall was on his way to hand the livestock over to his friend, Brady and his posse leave and catch up with them. In the group, again, is Tunstall, Billy, and a small group of ranch hands. Sheriff Brady calls out to Tunstall to come over. Tunstall, thinking he is in no clear danger. I mean, it's the sheriff. He's here to protect me. As Tunstall drew near, the perfectly named Buck Morton, I'm pretty sure he's a professional wrestler, leveled his rifle and shot the Englishman through the upper chest.
Jeez.
Tunstall tumbled from his horse to the ground, and as he was gravely wounding, thrashing about, Tom Hill, another man in Brady's party, dismounted, picked up Tunstall's pistol, shot him point blank in the back of the head.
Executioner
Hill,
style.
yes, it was. Hit. Hill then shot and killed Tunstall's horse, who Tunstall really liked his prize horse. They then, as a joke, quote, made his body, neatly covered it with a blanket, and the bloody head as pillowed and folded over his overcoat. They basically made it look like the Tunstall and the horse were sleeping together.
Like
They were sleep
together.
like they were taking a nap, but they were obviously just dead.
You're right.
If you're keeping count again, that's another father figure that Billy just lost. Billy also just likely lost the best chance for a normal life and in the worst possible way. If this isn't Bruce Wayne turning into Batman, this is not a better comparison. Even paying his respects a couple days later to John Tunstall, Billy is to have said, I will get some of them before I die, and walked out of the room.
So what happened? So after he walked, where did Billy and the ranch hands? Did they just like sit there and watch it all happen and then walk away, or?
Yeah, so they kind of hid behind a bush and warned Tunstall not to go because he's going to shoot you. Do not go. Tunstall, maybe with some air. Tunstall's only like 24, 25. It's not clear how he's not really like the guy that gets his hands dirty. Like he has two other partners that basically do all of the shady stuff he can't get caught doing.
He
I
thinks
will
he's
be.
fine as
He thinks
he's
he's fine.
strolling over there.
He's powerful enough they wouldn't dare shoot me. Is how I take it. And let's also be clear, because Billy ends up siding with Tunstall. It's very easy to view Tunstall as this hero, this fallen figure, this hero type. If
Well,
the roles
especially
were
since he was just killed by the house.
right, I don't think there's any question that Tunstall just wanted to be another version of the house. He just wanted to get rid of Doland. He just wanted to get rid of the house so he could take over the county and probably do a lot of the same things. I don't think there's a big difference between them. It just happens to be he's on the side of the person we're covering, so we like to cheer for Tunstall because, damn it, he was Bruce Wayne's father, and now there's an origin story.
So
But
Billy vowed to get some of the people that killed Tunstall before he
quote,
died.
I'll get some before I die, as he walked out of the room. Now, again, probably not a real quote, but it sounds good after the
I
fact,
was,
doesn't it?
yeah, I was just gonna say, but damn if it's not, if it's not something that happens in a movie, don't you worry, I got this. Cue dramatic music, cue montage,
Cue Batman.
right?
I'm picturing him in the bat suit the rest of this episode. I don't even care. Be really hot in New Mexico, though. So Billy forms a new posse with the ranch hands on Tunstall's faction, and they call themselves the Regulators.
The from my time with Billy the Kid in the movie Young Guns, I'm pretty sure they formed a posse and they were called the Regulators. Makes sense now. Hey, that's accurate.
It is. You found an accurate.
I wonder
I'm
if
very
Sombrero
proud.
Jack was in that movie. I'm gonna have to look into that.
How many sombreros were there?
Oh, it's been a while since I've seen the movie. I think one.
It's probably him. There can only be one sombrero.
So they formed the Regulators.
They formed the Regulators, and they appeared to kind of be like a Robin Hood leaderless group, all for one. Well, that's the Three Musketeers, so I screwed that up. But anyway, they're all motivated by Tunstall's killing, and they just want to take on the house. You do get the sense over the next couple weeks that the Regulators take more damage than they actually do, but they are able to find some of Sheriff Brady's lackeys, those that killed Tunstall. They're able to track them down basically to a brush, into a brush. Um, and they have a little bit of a debate on if they're going to kill the two men that were with Brady that day. And eventually, they're young men, so they kill them. And it is said that the bodies had 7 bullet hole. Each body had 7 bullet wounds in it, one for each regulator that killed them. So they're all equally responsible for their deaths.
So it's not just one man. If one of them goes down, they all go down.
They're all in this together. They now move on to Sheriff William Brady. The regulators either plot out assassination attempt or having breakfast one day and see an easy opportunity, end up hiding behind Tunstall's old store behind a 10-foot adobe wall. At daybreak, Sheriff Brady left the Dolan store and were accompanied by his deputies. They walk down the street and then start back up to the store. After pausing to exchange a few friendly words with the woman in the yard, Brady hurries up to catch up with his men. The regulators poke their Winchesters through the holes carved in the adobe wall and ambush Brady at least a dozen times. Brady is to have said, "Oh Lord," as he attempts to get to his feet. A second volley of shots strikes him dead. The other deputies rushed for cover. One bullet hit one. He then laid on the street crying, had to be rescued by a local bar owner who tried to get him to safety. Another deputy was struck and died. And then in an oddly specific phrase, quote, Squire Wilson, no idea who he is, but Squire Wilson, who had recently relieved of his post of justice of the peace and was hoeing his onions in the backyard across the road from the Tunstall store, survived a stray bullet in his buttocks.
Oh, something jumped up and bit me.
As about to say, that is Bubba. That is Forrest Gump. The war is intensifying. Western historian William Gomer says every son of a bitch wanted to kill someone. After trading gunfire a couple of weeks, Billy and the other regulators ended up trapped in a house that belonged to a man named McSween. They're in a standoff that lasts several hours, exchanging gunfires, but the regulators are not surrendering, realizing that anyone that essentially stepped outside was committing to his death sentence. Sometime in the afternoon, the women and children trapped inside the house are allowed to leave, which all but cements that anyone who surrenders from here on out is going to die. The regulators wait until nightfall, and the house starts to set the McSween place on fire. Billy is said to have rallied everyone inside of the house with a plan to escape. Billy creates a diversion by stepping out of the house, gun in each hand, house on fire behind him, likely not knowing just how much of a badass moment this is. Billy is able to escape through nightfall and through the fire and the chaos. Not everyone is allowed to leave, though. Those who do surrender are killed on the property. This becomes known as the Big Killing. Billy goes into hiding for a couple of likely from the Hispanic community. He's likely spending most of his time with Paulita Maxwell, who is 16 years old at this time. M. Scott Momaday would say that Billy was always looking for a family. He wanted a home, and that was the one thing he could never get. So maybe viewing Paulita Maxwell as his love of his life, he's maybe using his heart when he probably needs to be fleeing. A little bit of a random story. While in hiding, Billy comes across in a saloon, he runs across a cowboy named Texas Red. How cool is Texas Red as a nickname?
I like it. I'm gonna give it like a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Texas Red is a mean drunk with a reputation of being trigger happy. Billy kindly asks to see Texas Red prize pearl handled revolver, and Red hands it over easily. The kid saw that there were 3 shots of the 6 were in the chamber. Billy then spun the cylinder so that the hammer would strike an empty chamber the next time it was fired, and then simply gave the gun back to Texas Red. Later that night, a very drunk Texas Red and Billy get into an argument. Grant made the mistake of drawing on the kid when he was about to leave. Billy heard the hammer click on the empty chamber and whirled around and fired. Before anyone knew what was happening, Texas Red was dead on the floor with 3 bullets to the chin. One One witness saying the spread of the bullets was no larger than a silver dollar.
So he's gotten pretty good at shooting at this point.
He's gotten pretty good. Now, real story? Probably not, but it sounds good. He was very accurate. He was very good with a gun, don't get me wrong, but it seems like a really romanticized story. So, as you would imagine, as the Lincoln County War is intensifying, news gets back to Washington, and people out east start to wonder what the hell is going on in New Mexico. President Hayes appoints Lew Wallace, a war hero, to go clean up the mess, make this go away, and he makes him the new governor of New Mexico. Wallace is charged with
Just like
cleaning.
that. That's how it happened.
They were territory.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I believe they were territory. Somebody will correct me. So yes, he's able to just appoint, but think of him as like a peace officer. He needs to go keep the peace
Right.
type role. Wallace goes down to the state. He holds inquiries, but wouldn't you know, snitches get stitches, and nobody is going to testify. No one except for Billy. Billy, likely seeing the writing on the wall that there is no winning this war against the House, thinks it's time to go straight. The regulators are a small group of young men with just revenge on their mind. Brady's dead. They're likely not going to be able to get the House, the main members, Jimmy Dolan. And Billy agrees to testify in exchange for a full pardon. The result of Billy's testimony results in indictments on 50 men and over 200 indictments, including Jimmy Dolan. Take a guess what Lew Wallace does from here.
I'm gonna say runs.
He leaves. He leaves back for the state capitol, expecting the local law enforcement to take care of the indictments, the trials, and the judgments. Who runs the county again?
The House.
Whether Wallace knew it or not, the House had the DA in their pocket. And wouldn't you know, all of the charges against the House were suddenly dropped. And wouldn't you know it, all of the charges against the regulators stuck. Thinking this is for sure the end of the fight, the regulators effectively disband and flee. Billy is one of the few that actually choose to stay. As a result, many crimes are just blamed on Billy. He is effectively public enemy number one because the House also owns the newspaper. This is where the first time you see Billy the Kid written in newspapers. And it is also around this time that Billy gets that famous picture of him taken of his hand on the gun, where he looks all sorts of ugly. Apparently, that photo is not doing him justice. It has been compared to, he basically is known through history through his driver's license photo. Paulina Maxwell said that it just didn't do him any justice. He was apparently a pretty good looking young man. He just took a really horrible picture where it looks like he has a snaggletooth. That picture is also where they get the legend of him being left handed. It's a tintype print, I believe. And what they don't realize when they found it, that it is actually a mirrored image. So what it looks like, Billy is holding the gun with his left hand. So that's why you see, I believe, Billy the Kid in the 1950s film, he's viewed as left-handed when it was just a reversed image. He was still
I'm definitely
right-handed.
looking at the photo right now, and boy, oh boy, is that not a good photo.
Nope.
Oof.
Some even somebody, you can look it up on Facebook in one of the Wild West groups. And somebody cleaned it up really well, like actually like digitally enhanced and like colored it. He still looks ugly. Like it just had to have been a terrible picture. There's another picture of him on there where he's like playing a game with another guy, and they look day and night apart. They don't even look like the same person. So anyway, Billy stays again, likely for Polita Maxwell. This is where we need to enter a new character who will play a huge role in the rest of Billy's life. His name is Pat Garrett. And Pat Garrett is looking to make a name for himself and establish himself as a famous lawman. His idol is Wild Bill Hickok, and he is looking to follow in his footsteps. He is tasked with hunting Billy down. Garrett is a very serious, controlling man who is also very effective at what he does. And what he does is hunt down criminals. It doesn't take him long to track down Billy, and they find him in a place called Stinking Springs. Unaware that anyone is near, Billy is in his hideout with his friends. A friend walks out of the house, not knowing that Pat Garrett and his posse is just outside. The friend also had the serious mistake of wearing Billy's hat.
Oh no.
He takes 2 steps out of the house and soon has 8 new holes in his chest. His dying words being, I wish.
Can you imagine that? Hey, I'm gonna step outside. I can't find my hat, so can I just use yours quick? Sure.
Yep, go ahead. Jesus Christ.
Guess
I
you
would
can't
say,
wear my hat.
oh, I want the hat back though.
So his last words were, "I wish."
Yes.
I
Don't know
wish
what he
I
was
didn't
trying to
take. He was probably gonna finish it with, "Didn't put on that hat."
there's a documentary I said, and I believe it was even Bob Bosbell said that exact joke. And he
Oh.
seemed real pleased at himself when he said it. It's like, I bet he was gonna say, I wish I didn't wear this hat. And then he like grins at the camera like a creepy uncle. I
I
like
mean,
Bob Bosbell. That was unfair. I'm sorry, Bob. You're never gonna listen to this, but I like you. You seem like a nice guy. Sorry, I
so
compared you.
what did Billy do when he saw that his friend had just been shot 8 times in the chest?
Didn't go outside. Billy is in another standoff. He has a few friends inside, and they hold themselves inside the house. Enough bullets are fired that eventually Billy and those inside realize there's no hope. They have no food, there's no water, and they can't build a fire. They have to surrender. The next day, when Billy does surrender to Garrett, Billy has said, Hell, Pat, I thought you had 200 Texans out here. Otherwise, I would have never given up. He only had like 4 or 5 guys, which I'm sure really royally angered or annoyed Pat Garrett. So Billy is finally captured. I shouldn't say finally because he's been captured quite a bit. Only this time he didn't steal anything. He just murdered some people. He's upgraded. And Pat Garrett now has his prize to take into town. For the first time, newspapers are able to talk to Billy. Billy has said to a newspaperman, "This is good. Maybe people will think I'm half human. People will only consider me as an animal, and maybe now they'll think I'm at least half human." A reporter would describe the young rogue as someone, not very flatteringly, that there was nothing very mannish about his appearance, for he looked and acted like a schoolboy, where there was the traditional silky fuzz on his upper lip and clear blue eyes with a roguish snap about them. Pat Garrett couldn't be happier. Like I said, he has his prize. Billy is loaded up onto a train and set for trial in Santa Fe. A very quick trial is given to Billy, and he is convicted of murder and is given back to Garrett.
Surprise, surprise.
Who would have thought? Pat is then handed Pat then handed Billy off to his deputies, a man named J.W. Bell and Bob Ollinger. They have very few instructions, the most important of which is do not under any circumstances let Billy out of your sight. Do not be charmed by him. Do not be tricked by him. Garrett then leaves town thinking everything is fine. A couple days after Pat Garrett leaves, everything is routine. Billy is in jail. He's being watched by all hours of the night and day. Everything is fine. It's the morning of April 28th, 1881. However, Billy asked J.W. Bell to use the outhouse. Everything's fine. Nobody panic. Everything is fine. Bob Ollinger, thinking everything is fine, goes out to lunch. Billy's cell is kept on the second story of the building. Bell leads Billy down a flight of stairs, and Billy uses the outhouse. Everything is fine. Billy is coming, uses the outhouse, and is coming back up the stairs. When he gets to the top of the stairs, Billy turns around and ambushes Belle. Belle's gun drops out of his hand, and the two wrestle for it. Billy ends up winning and shoots Belle dead. They don't know if Billy had a key hidden in the outhouse or if he was just able to slip his hands out of the handcuffs again, but what is known is what happens next. Billy then goes over and finds Bob Ollinger's shotguns and runs over to his window. Across town, everything is still fine. Ollinger is eating lunch and hears gunshots across town, leaps up, and likely has a pretty good idea what is going on, stands up and is about to go investigate the shots. All doubt is gone when a townsperson screams, "The kids killed Belle." Just as Ollinger is crossing the street, he hears from the window above him, he hears Billy's voice in what is probably the most smug a human being could possibly look. Billy says, "Hello, Bob," and unloads both barrels of the shotgun into Ollinger. Ollinger lies dead in the street.
That's almost like I can't remember what movie it is, but he's just like pointing a shotgun and he just goes "sup" and then just kills the guy.
Yep. I'm just imagining like the half smile, like just smug, just the most like thumbs in his like cocky walk. This is the story about Billy the Kid. This
This
there's
is what
multiple
created the
witness
legend.
voices. This is a very famous story. This is not only in the United States, it actually gets reported in the London Times.
So this is a pretty big deal.
He's done it again, and it's dramatic. There's a great line in there. There's him kind of breaking the odds. He'd end up just fleeing off into a horse or fleeing off on horse. But again, his legend is really set because again, Garrett just paraded Billy as this prize. Look what I did. Look what I accomplished. And the prize just slipped through his grasp. And he did so in a pretty badass way.
Right.
Billy, you would think by now, just leave. Leave Billy. Go away. Billy doesn't go away. Guess where he goes?
To his girl.
To his girl. He goes to Polita Maxwell. Turns out Polita has a brother who is not impressed at all that his 16-year-old younger sister has fallen in love with a very famous outlaw. Pete starts giving tips to Pat Garrett, who at this point is is annoyed strong enough? Is there a strong enough word for how annoyed you would be? He's determined. After a couple weeks, Garrett thinks there might be some smoke to this fire, and he actually heads out to the Maxwell house. Garrett and two men arrive at the Maxwell house under the cover of dark. Garrett stations two of his men at the front of the door. Garrett, however, goes around the back, remains undetected, and hides in Pete's room on the first floor. Sometime during the night, Billy comes downstairs, and they believe he's going to go out and cut off a piece of beef that's hanging on the porch when he sees two silhouettes of the men at the front door. Billy asks, in Spanish, ¿Quiénes? ¿Quiénes? And now I'm just waiting for everyone to remember what that actually means in English from sixth grade Spanish.
Who's there?
Who is it?
Oh, who
Good
is
job. There you go. Good job. Someone paid
it?
attention in fifth grade.
Eh.
As he's saying "Quiénes," Billy is slowly backing into the doorway of Pete Maxwell's room. Where is Pat Garrett?
In Pete's room.
The same room where Garrett was waiting with Pete. Billy is literally framed up in the doorway, silhouetted by the moonlight. Garrett is sitting on the bed. Pete Maxwell turns to Garrett and says, "LS," or "It's him." Garrett fires two shots and is ready to fire a third when he realizes Billy's already dead. He doesn't need to fire a third shot. Billy lays dying. not knowing who killed him. I do think it's a great line, whether it's true or not. But like, I like the obviously Billy dies. It's very sad for this story, but for Billy to say "Who is it?" in Spanish, and for Pete to effectually say it's him, like you could say that as it's him who's going to kill you. But what he's really doing, he's telling Pat Garrett that that's Billy, that's
Well,
him,
that was
and then
probably the last thing Billy heard. So
yes,
when right after he asked who is it, it's him.
LS, it's him, and then he's just gone.
Did he die instantly or?
Pretty quick. Because again, the way it sounds, and Pat Garrett wrote a book. He will get an episode. He wrote a book on how he did. It sounds like he fired two shots pretty rapidly, and then he was ready to fire again when he realized he didn't need to shoot a third time. He was already
So it's
gone.
not like he was gonna like overkill him.
No, I'm sure it was a headshot. I need to look at exactly where it was, but he was gone. Or was he? Like everyone in this series, rumors of him escaping death eventually happen. If you go to his tomb or if you go to his gravesite now, there is one that says Billy the Kid, raised here. It's literally covered in a cage. And like everyone who notices it, the only way that you can keep Billy put in a cage is 6 feet in the ground and then build the cage over it. It's the only way to keep him contained. There have been multiple calls for New Mexico to exhume the remains that are underneath because people don't believe it was Billy. New Mexico will not exhume the body. Why? Because tourism matters. Why not have a mystery? But anyway, I think we got to rank him.
The biggest question I have is what did his girlfriend think of her brother
Not
after
highly.
that? He just essentially killed the love of her life.
Yep. She's 16. Do you want to know how? Do you want to be depressed? Do you know how
Yes.
old Billy was?
20,
21.
21,
How old are you, Matt?
33.
Feel good about your life?
Oof, how to die to what? 12 years ago, man. It's brutal.
He did a lot more than
I
we did.
mean, to be fair though, he did, he was a bad guy, but that's for the good old ranking, which we will just talk about now. So let's get into the scoring then. For those of you that may have not listened to the previous episodes, we'll go over the scoring. Basically, if it was a movie, would Eric or I buy a ticket into their life? And let me be honest, I'll go first. Not that satisfied. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like his life jumped from all over the place. It's crazy to me that he may or may not have been born somewhere else. He may or may not have had a younger brother. There's a lot of may or may nots. But as the story went on, as often a lot of things could have been bigger than what they were. So I was pretty satisfied. I'm going to go ahead and give him an even keel 5. What about you, Eric?
I guess I was much more impressed. There's a reason I picked Billy for the first episode. If we're viewing this, and again, so what we are doing is we are scoring him. Matt and I can each hand out negative 10 points to positive 10 points, zero being we're dead inside. We felt nothing for this. So Matt is saying that he was moderately impressed with Billy. It surprises me a little bit because I picked Billy for a reason because I thought his story, if this was a movie ticket, was quite good. So I'm now doubting my score because I was ready to go full marks on this one.
Oh, you were going to do 10.
I was doing 10
Oh,
because
wow.
he is a rags to infamous story, not riches, because he don't think he really had money. He has an origin story with Tunstall. He has plenty of tragedy. He builds up, he becomes a legend, and he has a pretty decent death story. So, and if you go with what Hollywood goes with, or if you go with Hollywood, there is literally a page dedicated on Wikipedia to Billy the Kid's story. Now, the real story versus the legend might be different, but I was ready to go 10, but I'm really
I
doubting that
really
score.
the reason I went in even keel is because I feel like only the latter part of his life was pretty exciting and
I mean,
very very interesting. You know, after Tunstall, but before that, you know, it was just I mean, the guy stole butter.
he threw
I
salt in
mean,
someone's eyes.
I
He's
mean,
he reverse Santa'd. He was an
yeah,
escape
but
artist.
he also snuck through some bars that were bigger because he was skinny.
He had an advantage.
Exactly. He had the
Haters gonna
advantage.
hate.
It's not like he masterminded a huge escape attempt later in life, yeah, when, you know, the thing that made him infamous. I'm going to stick with my 5. I'm sticking with my 5. And you're going to go 10?
I'm going 10.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is a score of 15.
So, round 2.
Be sure you are ready. Then go ahead.
Basically, was this person good or bad based off of their life and their circumstance? I'm gonna go ahead and I think Billy worked with what he had, you know. I mean, with his mom dying at a young age, never having that father figure. I'm gonna go ahead and give him a positive score. And I'm gonna say a 7.
We're closer on this one. Not gonna lie, the first score, the first round of being 5 apart. Ooh boy. I agree. Now I'm thinking like what did he do that was a negative trait, personality trait, right? He threw salt in someone's face. That's annoying. I don't know if that makes him bad, but also I don't think he deserves a full 10 because there's nothing he did that went above and beyond. So, my guess or my I'm thinking 7 as well. I think that's a good score. We're going with 7.
Because
So,
I feel like he did kill people. I mean, so that's very
they
unhonorable.
they
But
seem very like revenge killing though. They seem like justified killings. He
well, he was
wasn't
taking
going.
down the house, right? So
Yes, he had an enemy. He had a clear goal. He just
and
ends up
and it's
losing
not
at the
like
end.
they were the best people either.
No, I mean, it would
It's not like he was
just
walking around town just blasting people.
no. It was he had a clear motivation. Now there is some sources that do think he is a cold-blooded murderer. There's the famous phrase of Billy that he killed 21 men for 1 year for each day he was alive. We'll get into that in his counting coup round, but it doesn't seem like he's a maniac. It seems like he's young, he's driven by revenge, and he has a goal.
So
However,
speaking of if he was crazy or not, let's move into the next round.
Someone I need to go kill.
Well, who?
You are not my target, but keep bothering me, and I'll add you to the list.
Uh, to hell with the consequences?
Was he crazy? Was he good crazy, bad crazy? Was he just completely off the rails? Was he, you know, was he clever? And I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm gonna go ahead and give him an 8 on this one because I feel like he was very clever. I mean, how many times did he break out of? How many times did he break out of jail? I mean, given he was skinny, climbed up the chimney, walked through the bars. That last one was it took some effort, and so I think he wasn't crazy. I don't think he was crazy at all.
nope.
I think he knew what he was doing. Although when he was a kid, throwing his best friend in the river might
In
not
the
have
river
saved him.
for an
You can
argument.
argue. You can argue he didn't know what was going on, or that he didn't think his friend was drowning. So I'm gonna go ahead and yeah, give him an 8. I think he was pretty clever.
Yeah, that's not a bad score. So thinking how clever he was, I mean, he was a really crappy horse thief, so that's going to lose points for me because if he got caught stealing horses at least what 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
He got caught quite a bit. He was just an escape artist. So, does his ability to escape jail overtake him getting caught in the first
Every
place?
single time he tried to steal something.
It seemed like it. Costume jewelry to butter, but yeah, I'm a little less impressed. I think I'm gonna go with a 7. It's still pretty good because climbing up a chimney, "Hello, Bob" is just great. I love that line. If I would have found a way to make it a round name, I would have. But no, I think 15 is a good score for Billy there. All right.
So, what's his overall score? For those keeping track, that would be a positive score. I know that.
Yep. So he's positive. So what we're gonna do is, after To Hell with the Consequences, if their figure is in a positive score like Billy is, he's going to be continue to add points. But let's say Billy wasn't a good character and he was at negative points, we would continue to subtract. So the true bad guys would continue to lose points and the true good guys will continue to gain them. So for this next round of draw, Billy is in a positive score. Right now, he is sitting at a positive score of 44 with 3 rounds to go.
Awesome. So, the next round.
Draw.
How well would we do in a duel or a shootout, I guess?
If we got in an argument with Billy, how much trouble are we in? If you ask Texas Red, we're in big trouble. But also, he kind of asked for it. He did draw on him first.
I was gonna say, well, I mean, from the Torres story, where I mean, what was it? No smaller than a silver dollar. I think we're in some trouble, and he didn't even hesitate to kill that dude. So
But
if
but he was
five,
provoked.
right? But I mean, it wasn't. Well, right? You're saying Texas Red drew first. I'm gonna
I,
go ahead and say I'm gonna say a 3. I think we would definitely get wounded, if not killed.
I do think I'm not. And again, what we need to clarify is a score of 0 here is we can talk them out of it. We're not as screwed as we think. A score of 5 would be maybe they just clip us, maybe they hit us in the foot, we're just horribly mangled. And then 10 is we're very dead. So what we're judging him on, and I kind of agree with Matt, is if I crossed Billy, if we actually got to the duel, we're dead. We're going to die. But I think we can talk him out of it because all we need to do is just not kill a major figure in his life. And I think we'll be fine. So I feel like I think Billy just needs a hug. That's all he needed the entire episode is just someone to hug him and to accept him. And he just never got it. So I'm going to go with a 2, slightly lower than Matt.
Which is how well did they hold up throughout history and have we heard of them? Billy the Kid is one of the most well known, I feel like. As I mentioned before, there are a couple movies, the Young Gun series, and a few more I know of for sure. So I think he
I
is
do
very well
think
known.
so like even the nickname The Kid, this is kind of, I'm not going to say it originated there, but when you put the moniker The Kid on someone, you're drawing back to Billy.
Right. I think if you asked anyone, if they've even just heard of Billy the Kid, they might not know much about him, but they definitely know of him. So I'm
They
going to
know the
go pretty
name.
high on this one. I'm going to say his legacy is probably at least an 8.
I guess if you put him on a short list, whose name is bigger? So if Billy is an 8, who is your 9 and 10?
I would say definitely
Or who is
Jesse
more
James,
well known? Okay.
Wyatt Earp,
Okay. I can believe that.
just a couple.
I'm going slightly higher. You bought me with because I was ready to go 10 on this one because he literally has a Wikipedia page of other like filmography that he's been in or adaptations that are on his life. So I think I'm a little bit more impressed, but I am going to do a 9. I can do 9.5 just in case my mood changes for another figure. So you gave him an 8?
Yes.
9.5. That is 17.5.
All right. So now the bonus points.
Counting coup.
So, this is essentially their body count. Except for with most of these figures, romanticism really takes over on these death counts. So, in order to be fair, we're going to be confirmed ish kills. And by my count and by a few Google searches, 6 seemed to be the most consistent number for Billy. So, what we will do is we will take that score of 6, that number will get divided by 10, and he will get a score of 0.6 in this round. Now, one final round to go, and this is just simply, did we think their death deserves an extra bonus point? Did they go down in a blaze of glory? Did they just die of old age? We can give out 0, 1, or 2 points if we choose to. Personally, it's fine. It's fine.
See, for me, I feel like it's more than fine because they captured him. He escaped, captured him, escaped. I feel like they felt there was no other option. He had to be taken out because he could have easily took him in, but there was no other option. And just how it went down, I feel that it was a fitting end to someone that probably would have gone on to turn more bad than good.
Really? You think Billy would have went full two-faced on us?
Yeah, I really do. So it was one of those you either take them out now or pay for the consequences later. What is that line at the end of The Dark Knight? Live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yep.
So
I'm thinking just of the story, and I'm thinking more of just the lines. There is something very cool about him backing into the, like, just the whole story of him backing into the moonlight, into the doorway, saying "Kienes, Kienes," and then Pete in the background saying "LS," and then he's gone.
right.
I'm not gonna say that's the best death we're gonna come up to. I think it's half a point worthy. I think it's a cool story, but the overall death, he was just kind of shot.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go with a half a point.
Full point for that round, which gives us our first official full score. Billy, out of 100, kind of, basically 100, he scores a 68.1, which out of 1 puts him in the lead. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that.
Hey, good job, Bill.
You did it. So now we're going to go on to our drafting.
So now we're basically drafting them onto our team. Both of our rosters will consist of 20 members. The rest of the people on the list, so that would be 35, will go into the free agent pool where if we wanted to, as we thought about it, go into pick up one of those people from the free agents, we can drop a figure off of our team and pick up a free agent. Otherwise, that is the team that we will have going into the final draft, if you will, against who is the best figure. So the coin flip will decide if I get to choose first, if I want to keep or get rid of Billy the Kid, or if Eric goes first, he will decide if he wants to choose, or they will automatically be bumped to my team since obviously we don't have neither of us have anyone right now. It'll get a little more interesting once we each have a full roster.
All right, so I have an official Dakota Territory Centennial Celebration from 1961. On the front there is a covered wagon. Can we agree that is heads?
Yes.
On the back, it is a 50-cent mark for a beer back in 1961. That is tails.
Who's calling it?
You're calling it. I am flipping it.
Tails never fails.
What is that?
Heads.
Yeah, it is. I think I'm gonna take him. I'm gonna take a reach, and I think I'm just going to draft Billy because Matt doesn't think he is the best story we're gonna run into, and I can't wait for him to win this entire thing and prove Matt wrong.
I see the joke's on you because if I would have won, I was going to pass, so it doesn't matter.
You were going to pass on Billy the Kid?
No, I honestly was gonna take him for the simple fact that I knew you liked him, so I didn't want you to have the chance of picking him up. But
See now,
I do think he is going to go pretty far in the overall ranking.
oh, it's strategy. He is a big name. We just talked about legacy. There is fewer big names than Billy the Kid, so that'll be fun. So, I guess that kind of wraps up the first episode. Nobody
Yeah.
died except for Billy.
Well, multiple people did die, but I mean, it ultimately stopped with
It's true.
him dying.
It
So.
wasn't us. We did a thing. We have 75 more people to go.
So we hope you stick it out with us as we journey to the West and figure out who is the most
Im-
well-known figure,
Infamous and
influential.
victorious. All right.
As always, if you like our podcast, please subscribe. We will be hopefully, putting out an episode.
About every other week, I think.
We also have an email, ranking76pod@gmail.com. Please shoot us an email if you what you liked, what you didn't like, what we